yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings. The crown is yours. We are 1 month away from the 2025 NFL Draft. It's March 24th today. The draft starts April 24th. That means a couple things. Number one, you can go back and either listen or watch all of our previous episodes. We've been going position by position, so you should be all over it. We've already obviously did 2 episodes on the quarterbacks, we did running backs, on wide receivers, tight ends last week. Check them all out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, or wherever and however you listen to your audio podcasts. Love those of you that subscribe to either the audio or video. You can turn your notifications on video, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. That's amazing. YouTube is where my co-host for this show, who's the star of the show, truth be told, really made a name for himself with his football game plan page on YouTube, his channel. You can also check him out on social media at FBall Game Plan. Most importantly, though, get the draft guide. Buy it now. Thank me later. Thank yourself later. It's like one of those things in life where you're putting something in. You buy it now, thank yourself later. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. That thing will be out very, very shortly. You're going to love it when you get it if you love listening to this show or watching it. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. Most of you know that. At Ross Tucker NFL on social media. You can always follow the network at Ross Tucker Pod. Can't tell you how much we appreciate those of you that rate and review all the shows. Today, we are talking about the marquee position in the sport of football. By far the most important position. The position that people don't talk about nearly enough, but they should, because all they want to talk about is quarterbacks or the guys that get fantasy stats. Check out the Eagles, the Super Bowl champs. It's called the offensive line. It's vitally important. We'll get into it, as always, the tackles, the guards, the centers, with my guy, Emory. I will say this, though, Emory, before we get too far, love the episode last week about the tight ends. I did have a couple people reach out and say, what about Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, and what about Elijah Arroyo from Miami? People wanted to get your breakdowns of both those guys. So before we dive into these O-linemen, what do you have on Fannin and Arroyo?
Arroyo is someone, I'll tell you right now, when you grade, we gave you our top 3 by position, and Arroyo just missed the top 3, but he was at number 4 behind Bryson Nesbitt of North Carolina, who we talked about. He's good in the open field with the ball in his hands, very good receiver inside the red zone, someone that you see as a flex tight end, obviously. The blocking has to improve significantly, both inline and when he's detached as an H-back. So it's the blocking that knocked him down a peg in terms of where he ranked in terms of the top, 3, but he's right there at 4, so he's still a pretty good player.
As an inline guy? He's an inline guy.
He's a flex guy.
Oh, flex guy. Sorry, flex guy.
Flex guy.
That's right, behind Nesbitt. Okay.
Behind Nesbitt. And as an H-back, that's where I have
Fannin
of Bowling Green. And here's the thing. He's a good receiver that understands both spacing and zone coverage, so he knows how to work himself open. He doesn't run into coverage, which you like because he's a savvy vet in that regard. Great hands. Excellent hands. So he's going to catch anything thrown his way. The issue I have with Fannin is mostly athleticism. And when you're ranking these guys based off athletes, just raw athleticism, he's going to get pushed down a list. Like he may end up being a Chika Okonkwo or the guy for the Ravens, Isaiah Likely, or David Njoku. Both guys are very good receivers, but they're not the most athletic in terms of movement skills, but it has worked for them. So I'm not saying that he can't be a very good productive pro. It's just that when you're ranking these guys by athleticism, Fannin has an obvious deficiency in regards to everybody else at the position.
Interesting. Put up huge numbers for a guy with that deficiency, but a lot of that can just be who the offense decides to feature. Who else do they have on the offense? Like maybe he's all they got and they wanted to feed him. All right, let's get into the offensive line, and we'll start with the offensive tackles. They're the guys that usually get drafted the highest, and your number one ranked offensive tackle is Will Campbell from LSU.
Listen, man, I know everybody, you can't be afraid of, Duke Manyweather and his offensive line buddies, right? You know what I'm saying? If you think he a guard, stand 10 toes down and say he a guard. Don't let those guys bully you online. I think he a tackle. You know what I'm saying? Because one, he plays like a tackle. He's played left tackle all his life. And two, I don't want to deal with Duke Manyweather and his offensive line buddies in my mentions. Like I'm joking, because obviously those dudes do a fantastic job of breaking down line. I want to say Duke had 5 of the top 7 offensive linemen in terms of testing at the combine. So clearly he knows what he's talking about, knows what he's doing. And I've always said this about the shorter arms with Will Campbell or with any prospect. It only matters when it matters. So if you are a guy like Mike Tyson, who was outreached by everybody he fought as a boxer, and we talk about Mike Tyson in his heyday, but what Mike Tyson did, doop, 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 bang, got up underneath him, got those hands on him. Don't matter if you are 6'4", 6'5", with reach, he's able to dip underneath you and get his hands on you first. Will Campbell has played with shorter arms his whole life. He knows how to win. And that's what he has done consistently at LSU. He was the cleanest prospect. He got thrown into the fire. He talked about that against Jared Verse in Florida State. More than held his own, and he just got significantly better every single rep, every single game, every single season. He is by far, in my opinion, the best tackle on the board.
By far the best tackle on the board. I haven't seen it. What are Duke and those guys saying, that his arms are too short to play tackle?
No. They're taking shots at everybody that says his arms too short to play tackle. So they're like, why would you move a guy who's excelled at tackle to guard? And that makes so much sense. Like, if I'm showing you my short arms don't matter, then leave me where I'm at. I had the same argument with folks in 2012 when I had Russell Wilson as a first-round grade and my number 3 quarterback behind Luck and RG3. And everybody's like, he's too short. I was like, he's been 5'10" his whole life. And you know who led the league, led the country in batted passes that year in college football? Brock Osweiler, who's 6'7". So at the end of the day, Russell Wilson was playing great football, not getting his passes batted at the line of scrimmage because he's 5'10". And when you get your passes batted, it's because your eyes are locked into one spot and people could time they jump. It has nothing to do with height. Just like these arm length issues that we have, if I get my hands on you first, your length is irrelevant now because I got my hands on you first. I'm winning that battle. Now I'm in a position of control.
Man, I could say a lot about this. I've always said, give him a chance. Let him prove that he can't do it at the position. In terms of Will Campbell, he's gone against some very good players, and he's figured it out. And I had crazy short arms. Do I think it has an impact? I do. But I think he's also, it's not like there's a lot of other guys like Joe Thomas didn't have the longest arms of all time. There's other guys that end up being Hall of Famers and their arms are like a half inch longer than Will's. Is that half inch the difference? Not like he's at 30 and everybody else is 35.
Right.
It's a marginal difference, I would say. And I'm not a fan of these arbitrary cutoffs where people are like, you got to be over 33. Got to be over 30. Like, wait, what? Well, why is that? So that doesn't always make sense to me. So what's interesting to me, Emory, is you have very different second and third tackles than other people. You have Cameron Williams, number 2.
I'm a big fan of how technically sound he is at the position, Ross. Like, he has great recognition skills. So he's able to pick up stunts and twists, and he's able to play the piano, pass guys off to the next guy. And when he locks in with his hands, like, that's it. The rep is over. Like, And when you're technically sound, you're fundamentally sound, you're always in a good balanced position, you are going to sustain a hell of a lot more blocks than you lose blocks. Now, at times he can be a little bit too patient to shoot his hands. Like, so you're getting too much depth in the pocket and you give yourself no room for error. If you have a false step or if you misshoot or the guy gets his hands on you first, now you're right there by the quarterback. So yeah, it's a fine line to really skate between um, aggressive and patience. But I think he does a great job in doing that. But when you talk about someone sustaining blocks and playing with technique consistently and sustaining blocks and doing what needs to be done to have success, I like his game. His game was consistent.
Your third ranked tackle is Ozzy. I think it's I don't know if it's Trapilo
Trapilo.
or Trapilo. What's it?
Trapilo.
Yeah, tell me about him.
Well, the reason why I know how to pronounce the last name because his dad played for the Saints. Growing up watching that offensive line, Dombrowski, Trapilo, they had a bunch of guys up there along the offensive line. Fontenot. So Trapilo to me, for someone that is 6'8", Ross, terrific knee bend, fundamentally and technically sound, gets consistent movement, does a great job on the move. So he's athletic. He's not just a big dude that's just in the way. Like he has really good tape. And when you're watching, all these skill players and you're looking at, man, this tackle is really good. Or you're watching, a guard and then you say, oh, wow, the tackle is pretty good. Like Trapilo kept popping up. He's a 6'8" guy that plays like he's 6'5", which is a great thing. And I just think that he does a great job in, playing shorter than his height, but also knowing how to use his length and getting movement in the run game.
What about some of the guys you don't have that are ranked high by others, Emory, like a Armand Mbow from Missouri?
Mbow, to me, I think I graded him more so as a guard. Oh, no, I'm lying. I graded him as a tackle. I'm looking at it right now. His footwork is good. He could play guard if he wanted to. As a down blocker, he's able to wash guys. Like he'll change position in a heartbeat, Ross. Like he'll move you from defensive end to nickel corner. If you're not careful on the opposite side, like he'll consistently get you out the way. I think at times with his kick slide, we talked about this earlier, where you kind of give yourself a little no room for error because you're getting so much depth that you're making the job easier for the defensive end. So if you miss the block, it's a sack or it's a hit in an errant throw. So being able to be a little bit more aggressive and beating the guy to the punch and getting his hands inside as opposed to kind of waiting and allowing guys access to your chest, that's a big issue for me with Mbow.
Got a winner, by the way, later on in the show. Someone that did what I'm asking you to do. Getting cool stuff for doing what you're doing anyway. Drinking beer. It's buy beer, get gear from Labatt. Just head to the website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. We'll talk about Tom Ledman a little bit later in the show. Shout out to Tom for being the winner. Hopefully, Tom, you also sent that picture of the receipt to rewards.labattusa.com so you can get gear by buying beer. What about, he got hurt, but here's a guy called multiple of his games when he was at San Diego State. That's Josh Simmons from Ohio State.
Ross, I'll tell you this. Like, Simmons is my fifth, and I have a first-round grade on him. I'm a big fan of his game, bro. I think he is the most athletic in this class at that position in terms of how he moves. Like, his athleticism is off the charts. And, he moves more like a tight end than a tackle. And that just opens up your entire playbook. So health permitting, it wouldn't shock me to revisit these rankings 3 years from now. He's a top tackle in the class because that's how good he is. He also does a great job in winning the hands first battle. When you get the draft guide, you'll see a lot of that in the O-line and defensive line breakdowns, like hands first, because I'm big on that. If I get my hands on you first, I kind of can control the rep and have a better chance of winning the rep. And Simmons is always getting his hands first. He's athletic, so now he gets his hands on you first. He's athletic enough to move. You're not getting back there to the quarterback. So if he can return back to what he was pre-injury, the sky's the limit for this kid.
Couple other guys that left school early. Curious, Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas or Josh Connerly from Oregon. Any strong takes on either one of those guys, Emory?
Another first round grade on Banks, because great recognition skills. Talk about effectively seeing it and also athletically being able to stop it in terms of the stunts, the twists, any type of games they want to run up front. He's a good athlete on the move. He's solid on both ends of offense, so he's good in the run game. He's good as a pass protector. I just want to see him play with a little bit more balance. At times, it feels like he's lunging a little bit, like more so waist bending, as they call it. But checks all those boxes you need to have for a stud tackle. Whether you want to put him on the left side or the right side, I think he can play either side because he's so good and so good at what he does fundamentally. I'm a big fan of Banks. And also when you talk about Connolly, he had a really good Senior Bowl, good athlete, and not always going to give you a chance. He's 6'4", 311. Some people will look at that and say, oh, he's 6'4", but he has the functional strength to really dominate. The quick hands to strike and stymie a defender right away. He'll overshoot the runway sometimes, and he'll whiff. Try to block in space. Like he ended up blocking air. So got to be a little bit more under control in that regard.
Let's go to the interior offensive lineman. We can start at guard. And your number one ranked guy is Tyler Booker from Alabama.
Man, he is. I tweeted this out after I graded probably a Alabama defender or probably Booker. It's like they got to come from two families. Because how does Alabama and Georgia keep getting, these same built offensive and defensive linemen? These dudes are built in a lab. And Booker put together a dominant senior season. He was legitimately Ross dominant on film. And I think he does a good job able to lock in and move guys up out the gap. Like, so if you want to go left, he'll take you left. If you want to go right, take you right. If you want to try to go down hill and try to get in the backfield, he's going to take you left. He's going to take you right. He controls the rep completely. I think he was the best guard on film. That's why he ranked out as my number one.
Ooh, okay. And then what about your second guard, Marcus Mbow?
Super athletic, has the quickness, and his quickness pops on film. He can get anywhere within the front seven and execute a block, whether you want to combo and climb, whether you want to, get him out and, kick out on a trap play or a wham play or get him out on the screen. He's always looking for work. He's athletic. He's on the move, and he strikes with accuracy out there on the move, though. And I think a lot of times where he'll get into the fight a lot with the defender and won't put that anchor down right away. He waits too late, which tends to be what we talked about a lot throughout the show, where you don't give yourself much room for error. If you sit that anchor down, drop that anchor right away, now you're able to give yourself some room if you get some pushback. But if you're kind of working your feet, working your hands, now you're getting depth in the pocket, it's almost a lose-lose situation for you. But overall, athleticism and ability to connect on the move, I like his game.
What about, Emory, your third ranked guard, a guy I've called multiple of his games in college, and that's Joshua Gray from Oregon State?
I was shocked at him being 6'3", 300, because he plays like he's 6'6", 330 in how he just dominates. And I think his ball get off is key because he fires into the chest of the defender right away to where the defender is almost just instantly in a retreat mode and has no chance to really figure out what's going on before he's up out the way and the running back has just run right past him. So he's good on the move. So you can open up your playbook, pulls and traps and all that stuff like that. He's able to execute those things. I just think at times he tends to fire off a little bit too low. And, you get that swipe down by the defender, and now you're flying on a slip and slide from the offensive line to the secondary. I could see that happening with him because he fires off a little bit too low. And he could be a little bit too aggressive in pass pro to where you want to have an aggressive pass set. You want to beat the guy to the punch, and then he ends up, winning the rep right away. And now you're in retreat mode, chase mode, throwing lookout blocks to your quarterback.
Couple guys curious to get your opinion on and where you slot them from a position standpoint. One of which, Donovan Jackson, who was playing guard for Ohio State the last couple years, and this year they had to bump him out to tackle when Simmons got hurt, and he played pretty well out there. Curious to get your thoughts on Donovan Jackson from Ohio State.
I have him graded as a guard because that's where he started at, but it was good to really see him play tackle this year because now if you're an offense, like, and you know this better than many, Ross, that where, on game day, for whatever reason, teams don't carry them in the offensive lineman. So the more you can do and do it well, you just made yourself a ton of money. So I thought he made himself a ton of money this year, showing that he could not only play left tackle, but thrive in that role, even though he's thrived as a guard. So you got good versatility right there. And also he has the type of strength that you want in the run game. If you're going to get the run game going, guards in the guards where it's going to have to happen, and he's dominant in that area. So that's what I'm a big fan of him at guard. But I love that he was able to play tackle because as a coach, as a GM, man, it helps us out on game day.
And then the other guy I wanted to ask you about, Emory, is Gray Zabel, my FCS brother from North Dakota State, who I think can play every position.
Literally, and he graded out as 4, so he was right behind Gray for me at Oregon State with a first-round grade. I'm a big fan of Zabel. One, because he was dominant on film. That's a given. North Dakota State, they run the football. You know what you're going to get from a North Dakota State offensive lineman, sight unseen. Boom. But I like the fact that he went through a full 16, 17 game season and finished with a national championship, goes to the Senior Bowl, competes the whole week, and dominates there too. He didn't take off like, I got to give my body a rest. He went out there and dominated and competed. And that's kind of what you want to see. And I love the fact that when you're watching North Dakota State, you watched them against Colorado because they finally were able to get an FBS team back on the schedule because we know teams were avoiding them because they were going to get beat by North Dakota State. Yep. So Colorado was actually able to get them back on the schedule or go on their schedule, and he competed really well in that game against guys who are going to be playing pro ball up front.
So I didn't know much about this today until I started looking about this guy till the Senior Bowl. Your number 1 ranked center, Willie Lampkin. Emory, I love this guy.
Ross, listen. Yes, he's 5'10". Yes, he's 270. And when you go into it, we all have these preconceived notions of, I'm going to see something that's going to be like, that's why he can't play in the league because he's 5'10". I'm watching this, Ross, and I'm like, I am not seeing anything that's going to deter me from saying this dude can't play in the league. And the reason why, because we're watching him play at a Power 5 level and doing it really well. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl and does it really well there as well. So I'm like, if he is doing the job, then there's no reason for me to knock him and say he can't do it because he's showing you he can do it against dudes that we're going to draft on Sunday to play in the NFL. So until it is proven otherwise, until I see some defensive tackle lift him up and toss him back into the locker room, I will have Willie Lampkin playing center for me or guard, but preferably center because he's so quick and athletic, he can get out and around. So when you have an athletic center, playbook is wide open. And I've played with a center like this before. Ronnie Harvey at University of Louisiana was a 5'10" center, became an all-conference player. And this is a guy that does a great job in understanding that he's 5'10". He wins his way, he plays his way, and he's strong as an ox. He was a wrestler, so you know what that means.
Reminds me a little bit of Aaron Brewer. The Dolphins, undersized but super quick, incredible leverage. I love watching him. Seth McLaughlin is another guy, another Ohio State lineman that got hurt.
Very consistent on both ends of offense, Ross. And that's all I asked for. He has great hands and uses his hands really well, especially in the passing game, which is big because you won't get that quick interior pressure. Now, again, this is very specific to certain defensive players. Guys that have a little bit more savvy and a little bit more quick with their hands can give him some issue, but that you're pretty much talking about the elite of the elite, right? So otherwise, you're going to be fine with McLaughlin right there at center.
Your 3rd ranked center, Jake Majors.
Very good athleticism. Again, playbook is open when you have an athletic center. His feet never stop moving once he's engaged, Ross. And I can do a whole show on how many times I see an offensive lineman or defensive lineman feet die upon contact. Great initial contact. If you don't bring your feet with you, you're not getting any movement. You just in the way, or you just create a whole stalemate, and it's unproductive for anybody. But when you have the footwork combined with your ability to strike first and the athleticism, you're moving guys up out the way. And that's what he does. So I'm a big fan of his game.
Emory's sleepers are A.J. Gilly, Elijah Ellis, Tyler Ellsbury. The small school guys, Marcus Ware, Evan Henry, and Charles Grant from William & Mary. You probably don't know Emory. I almost went to William & Mary. Very close between Princeton and William & Mary. I know you guys want to hear more about them. Guess what? You can. Footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. You can read up on Emory's sleepers in small school. That's part of the value you get from the draft guide. He's at F-Ball Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. The keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.